Balatro clones remind me of the games released in the wake of Papers, Please. Lucas Pope's 2013 release felt novel and genre-defining. It became a template that was used, in whole or in part, by others over and over again. Games like Beholder, Not Tonight, and No Umbrellas Allowed spring to mind here, but there are many, many more. The combination of puzzle, dystopian setting, moral choices, and retro pixelated art has become a staple of indie-developed games. In turn, after Balatro was released to massive success in early 2024, its combination of puzzle, deck building, roguelike structure, and retro pixelated art spawned its own family of spin-offs and tangential takes on its wildly addictive formula. And following games like CloverPit and Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers comes Dice A Million, the latest Balatro clone I am totally rubbish at, and I am fine with that, just fine, because it's a really fun game that scratches a particular itch. You've played one of these kinds of games, right? You've played Balatro, right? Or you have seen it somewhere? Or at least heard of the game and how it works? Okay, just in case you have not, here's a quick rundown. You start with a standard deck of cards and a level to beat, named blinds here as the game borrows somewhat from poker terminology. You enter the level and get dealt a hand. You have a limited number of both opportunities to discard cards and make poker hands to score a certain number of points and beat the level. Cards have a chip value, hands have a multiplier, and these are combined to calculate your score. Beat the level and get some cash that you can use on goodies in the shop. These can be packs of extra cards with fancy abilities you can add to your hand. Other packs containing consumables that boost your hand multipliers. Tarot cards with a range of effects you can use to your advantage. Permanent buffs that might cost a little extra, and jokers, super duper cards that trigger every turn and possess unique effects that buff your hand, or provide other perks and utilities. Synergizing all these together, you beat ever increasing score targets as you progress through the rounds, and then come up against bosses, special levels that challenge you with a certain debuff you will need to navigate. A raw description of the game is one thing, the actual gameplay is another. That loop of playing hands, beating levels, spending cash on upgrades, and aiming for higher points totals is one thing. The satisfaction of building synergies, manipulating probabilities, and constructing exponentially explosive scoring chains, that's something that will make you come back for evening after evening over and over again. Winning runs, unlocking more decks to play with, more jokers to deploy, more vouchers to find, more progression, challenge, and fun to be had. Dice A Million does many, if not all, the same things. Just replace cards with dice, jokers with rings, and consumable cards with, well, different consumable cards. The gameplay loop is the same. You start with a fairly standard bag of dice and a level to beat. You enter the level and get dealt some dice from your bag. You have a limited number of rolls and dice available to roll each time to score a certain number of points and beat the level. Dice have a value that can be buffed in many ways, which then gets added to your score. Beat the level, pay the tax, and any score remaining can be used to buy goodies in the shop. Booster cards with fancy abilities, stamps that add a multiplier to a dice face and enhance your scores, extra die with various faces and abilities to add to your bag, or perhaps pay to remove some dice to increase your chances of filling your hand with what you want. And of course, rings, super duper things that can trigger on your rolls and possess unique effects that buff your rolls or provide other perks and utilities. Synergizing all these together, you beat ever increasing score targets as you progress through the rounds and come up against bosses. Special levels that challenge you with a certain debuff you will need to navigate. Now, before I go any further in talking about what Dice A Million does differently or what makes it so entertaining to play, before I show you how rubbish I can be when I'm spamming nonsensical combinations of dice together to get tragically low scores, yet still keep hitting that new game button regardless, or talk about the hint of mystery in this game that is presented alongside its gameplay. Before any of that, in case you have reached this point having not played these games before and right now are thinking that you don't like playing cards, you have no interest in poker, let alone its different hands, and dice are tedious, who the hell rolls dice anymore? Isn't that something Grandma would have done for fun when she was young? I don't like Yahtzee or backgammon, this sounds boring, I don't care about this kind of game, it's not for me. Please allow me to emphasise one simple fact. Balatro is really a puzzle and strategy game using a deck of cards as its language. Dice A Million is really a puzzle and strategy game using a hand of dice as its language. If you like puzzle and strategy games, or if you like overcoming escalating score targets and challenging bosses, or if you just like experimenting and having fun on your own terms, games like Dice A Million are for you. If you like a good puzzle to solve, each run of Dice A Million is exactly that. Which combination of pieces, from dice to rings to cards, do I need to put together given the options I have to beat this level and win this run? If you like challenging yourself to beat increasingly difficult bosses or difficulty levels, this game is a dungeon crawler with dice. Or if you're more like me and spend most of the time just clicking on stuff and seeing what wacky nonsense comes out the other side, you do you, this game is right here for that too. It's that experimentation and a certain embracing of chaos that separates Dice A Million, I think. It's in its tone and in the way that the game does not take itself seriously. It's playful and mischievous, as opposed to its elegant and controlled forefather. Its gameplay and scoring escalate much faster. Its combinatorial explosion of multipliers hits different. It's more of a spectacle than Balatro is. That core DNA that they share, or perhaps more accurately that Dice A Million inherited, remains apparent though. I've seen comments and reviews hint at a perception that Balatro is rigid in its rules while Dice A Million embraces bedlam. But in continuing to play both, as I do regularly, I am not really convinced of that. Dice A Million can appear disordered when dice are piling up on screen, AoEs are stacking on top of each other and magnetic dice are pulling everything about, accompanied by the ever-escalating pitch of the sound effects. But under the hood, it's really following the kind of scoring rules that Balatro is, with points and multipliers complementing each other and it usually being a good idea to have at least some kind of balance between both. Equally, Balatro can appear rigid with specific jokers doing specific things, the well-known card rankings lodged firmly in our heads, and the scoring being calculated in real time off to the side. But watch a highly skilled player stack dozens of jokers and rig their deck perfectly, then send a hand, and that game looks pretty chaotic to me too. The somewhat chilled ambiance of Balatro is present in Dice A Million. Its background music actually down-tempos through those initial 3 stages and bosses. And while that may change depending on your progress and choices, the aesthetic similarities are clear. There is some divergence between the two games' economies. In Dice A Million, the pips you score with double up as the game's currency and can be carried over between rounds, leading to the possibility of using one massive score to carry you through a whole stage until you hit the boss where any unspent score is deleted. Skipping rounds is a core strategy here. Go to the next round with enough score to clear it already banked, and you can instead spend to access mega packs to buff your run. But even a version of this is done by Balatro 2, with the skip blind mechanic granting access to a range of perks. Different decks, different starting hands of dice. Unlockable decks, unlockable hands of dice. Collections to complete here, collections to complete there too. Escalating difficulty is here in both, with Dice A Million's challenges and Balatro's stakes. Instead, perhaps the biggest differentiator is in the effort it takes to play each game, the cognitive capacity you will need to allocate to your play to approach competency. Dice A Million has a shallower runway, its difficulty does not climb as steep as fast as Balatro does. In that game, you need to be thinking about your hands and synergies almost immediately after the first blind. Progress further through the antes and beating bosses takes genuine thought and planning. If you are after some fun times just clicking on things and hoping for the best, your runs will end real fast. Dice A Million is slightly more forgiving. You have to be actively sabotaging yourself to fail the first couple of rounds. And even if you pay no attention to any synergies and just pick stuff from the shop that you think looks groovy, there is at least a chance of something cool happening that could result in you winning anyway. Or blow up your entire board. Entertainment is here to be had either way. My favourite example of this I have seen, over and above my own runs, is from many a true nerd's showcase of the game. He is using the magnetic die to proc other die and summon whole boards full of stuff. Unfortunately, this backfires one turn when a couple of those extra summonses turn out to be time bombs and oxidai, which blow up most of his board, use up the rest of his turns, and end his run.
In you go. Lots more charging. So there's, like, some dice. Are you going to trigger... Oh! Uh-oh!
That's not to say there is no strategy or planning necessary here. To get good at Dice A Million, you will need to learn the right combinations, and to get better still and progress through the game more, you will need to become more competent at working with what the shops give you, and at manipulating your card allocation, bag of dice, and hand of rings. My successes so far seem to be anchored to those rings as much as the dice themselves. If I can stack some multipliers on top of each other with the right rings, my runs tend to go further. Consistent dice bags include using the magnetic die to proc the various items you can get a hold of that require charging, or using an early marble. These both increase in value for each other marble in your bag, and increase the chance to find more marbles in shops. You can snowball this build, once again in conjunction with the appropriate rings. There are other combos I have spotted but not been able to execute properly yet. The 8 ball that changes all other die rolled to 8, in combo with the Sudoku and Dada dice that multiply other die with the same face, with an even ring and others on top for good measure, is something I want to try, but I haven't been able to put all the pieces together just yet. Fibonacci's die with a choose face card generator must be super strong if you can get that going. There is a hand you can unlock by getting the extra value of a die above 1000, and there are many die that synergize with that kind of build, but I just haven't gotten it off the ground yet. Try as I... Hang on, even as I'm saying this out loud, I'm realising that a bag full of dice, filled with things that summon more dice, like I spoke about before, will fill up the board to proc the incubus at... Wait a minute. As I hope you can see by now, Dice A Million is a game you can just pick up and play. If you don't want to, you don't have to be competitive about it. Just start up a game and see what happens. Experimentation is heavily encouraged. Want to build a bag with shitloads of dice? Go for it, there are synergies with that. Want to build a bag with hardly any dice? Go for it, there are synergies with that. Bag full of dice that are not even dice? Bag with loads of actual dice with multipliers stacked. Fancy rings that turbocharge everything. It's all here and all available for you to play around with. The main roadblock to this are those bosses. These bosses are tough and can simply be run-ending, depending on what you draw. Some of these are designed to specifically counter good decks. The Dusty is there solely to counter that magnetic die build, one that I imagine many new players, like me, will gravitate towards while learning the game. There are red die levels that pop up and spike the difficulty too. When I am paying attention properly and have noticed one appear, I often try to plan ahead and skip them if possible. These kinds of games generally eschew narrative. It tends to actively impede what makes these games so enjoyable. But Dice A Million does at least dabble in story. There is one here. It's a little opaque and light on detail, and that is by design. There are no character names or faces here. Although the telephone ringing once you beat the third boss does put me in mind of the banker from Deal or No Deal. This is not Red Dead Redemption 2 level stuff, but I did find myself grinning gleefully once I reached a certain point, which I won't spoil, for the first time. Broke through a particular glass ceiling, if you will. Games like Dice A Million and Balatro do something fun, something that bigger developers making more expensive games have generally moved away from. Something that goes back to what games used to be about. They bring back the thrill of chasing high scores. You know, like you used to do at the arcade, running off to ask mum and dad, whoever was most likely to cave in, for one more pound coin to put in the pinball machine because you really wanted to activate that special, or have one more go on Outrun, desperate to get past the next checkpoint. In the sea of 60-hour narratives, life sims, open worlds, and never-ending Call of Duty games, these pared-down, unpretentious, go and make this number as big as possible games remind you of what the core experience of playing is really about. They reimagine and remix old concepts while simultaneously evoking old presentation styles. But really, instead of coming up with fancy ways of describing Dice A Million or Balatro, I should just be playing them instead, because what they are is just really good fun. Thank you for watching my video. I hope it's been worth your time and attention.